Brutal V2 65 from CannonKeys is on the surface quite unspectacular. It's a two-tone all-aluminum CNC'd custom keyboard like so many others. It has different plate materials to choose from like others, foams for the case, the plate and in between like others, and it comes in a hot swap as well as soldered version. You know, like others. Honestly, even from the pictures on the website, I was never really that impressed by the Brutal series. They looked okay, but when the nice folks over at CannonKeys contacted me and asked if I wanted to check one out, I agreed. Although I didn't say it at the time, I was a bit hesitant at first. I thought, well, there's probably more interesting boards out there. This seems a bit generic. Now, I once again caught myself being overly snobby, and once again I was quickly corrected, but for reasons that I would have not initially expected. Although the build quality and feel plays a role as it should, subjectively speaking it was much more about how it looked in person and surprisingly, comfort. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, this board was sent to me by CannonKeys to review, but they did not pay me nor did they get any say in it. They also didn't see anything in advance. I'm only mentioning this because there was a question in the Q&A post asking if I felt that I was being partial in my videos. That really got me thinking, and I'll elaborate in more detail in the upcoming Q&A video, but I'll be honest with you, sometimes I feel like I have to say something positive when I get sent a product, but so far I always caught myself, or hopefully I've caught myself, filtering out such feelings before the video reached your eyes and ears. With that being said, I honestly do think the Brutal V2 is an excellent board. A bit expensive for what it is, but excellent nonetheless.
Excellent.
But words won't suffice, of course, so let's find out why that is. The Brutal series is inspired and named after the brutalist architectural style that emerged in the 1950s, identifiable by rough exposed concrete and unashamed forms that rather show than hide the, subjectively speaking, uglier parts of a building. Although the board appears to have, dare I say, a simple design, a closer inspection will reveal much finer details that should not be ignored, amplified by impeccable machining that creates a very sharp and understated look. For example, these fine lines here extend to the lower half of the bottom, passing by CannonKeys' logo to create a stark visual separation that reminds us of its inspiration and source of name. Just like the Mega from Keepwork and others of its kind, the Brutal series is an in-stock kit, meaning you should be able to buy one at any point in time as it won't be sold through a group buy system. This also goes for all the extra parts that one can choose from, starting with the different foam and weight materials to half or full plates, as well as the mentioned hot swap or solder PCBs, the latter of which will give you a little more layout options, although as it always is with solder boards, an additional level of commitment as well. Oh, and of course, 5 colors to choose from. For today's build, I'll be using the aluminum and palm plates along with the zinc and silicon weights and PE foam for the PCB. Gluing everything together will be these Wisteria switches I got from Zepsity. They're hand looped and really great, but more on that later. Probably not intentional, but to me even the carrying case it came in was brutish. I've handled a few of these by now, but this was the first one with such a chunky handle. Not sure if I like it though. The ones from OLAB feel a bit more elegant if you ask me. I don't intend to travel with my boards, but for those who do, the case is quite a bit larger than the board itself. This was most likely picked in bulk and then retrofitted with the insert for the 65 or something along the lines of that. On the plus side, it adds a lot of padding, which increases the board's protection in said bag. Inside you'll also find the parts needed for the build, neatly packed in branded little propaganda bags, minus the stabilizers, switches, and caps of course. But the main attraction is of course the case itself, which was wrapped in this rather nice cloth that you may use to wipe down the sweat from your face every time your partner asks you about how much you've spent on custom keyboards so far. The outer shell is held together by 4 Torx screws, which are easily removed to give us an individual look at these beautiful top and bottom pieces. I really like boards that hide all the screws on the outside, which is the case here. I know it's not something one will notice when it's on the desk, and to some degree it can be a bit more cumbersome for quick modifications, but I think it just looks that much better. It's a small detail, but not the only one. In its default configuration, we find 2 zinc weights inside, which again are inspired by the brutalist style that often showcase bare materials. Although brass might be on everyone's mind here, for this particular board, I think it's a welcome difference. If you must though, you can replace it with a silicon alternative, but be warned, I don't know how yours will arrive, but mine smelled absolutely gaudy. That was a little architectural joke for you, which I immediately am regretting. I apologize. I am I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Anyhow, if you do wish to resort to plastic surgery, you can attach them the exact same way, changing the weight ever so slightly when being fully built. If you're wondering if this affects the sound, I couldn't hear a difference, but your ears may tell a different story. Next on the list is the PCB. I got the hot swap version, which contains a single flex cut, although I don't think it does all that much. The way the plate is mounted, which CannonKeys calls a single-sided gasket mount, meaning there are gaskets but only on the bottom part of the plate, results in a rather stiff, almost inflexible experience. I honestly don't think this board can flex at all, at least not with the aluminum plate. I would call it solid, brutally solid. I added some leftover tapes I got from an old stabs kit, although I later realized that the PCB foam kinda cancels this out. There is also a thicker PCB foam you can add between the plate and switches, which I've done so as well because I like it. After that, it was time to loop the stabs, which in this build are stabbies, courtesy of CannonKeys as well. It's my first time trying these and, well, they're really nice. You folks are right. Before closing the sandwich, you can, but don't have to add the support beams for the plate. Using them will most likely increase the stiffness, which in this first build I decided to do in order to get as close to the way it's supposed to be. Make sure you pick the right screws though, there are 3 different types. I used the ones with the flat top and slightly rounded surface on the back of the support beams, the cone-shaped ones on the top of the plate, and the third type is for attaching the little daughter board, which I've done totally the wrong way. The USB port has to be on the underside, with the European Union facing yours truly. Nothing bad will happen if you go against democracy, except that it simply won't work. I was a bit dumbfounded when this happened until I remembered that I am an idiot. Now regarding the gaskets, there are 2 types to choose from. I got the pour-on ones, which I think you can technically attach to the plate directly. It would have been a bit nicer as the longer gasket above the daughterboard looks kinda weird with the exposed underbelly. That is, until I once again remembered that I am an idiot and replaced it with 2 smaller ones. The rest of the assembly was pretty straightforward. The only question you have to ask yourself is how many layers of foam you want, or if you want foam at all in the case. After that, you can put everything together and finish off by attaching the little rubbery feet on each corner. Really, this was quite a simple and relaxing build, perfect for a first timer or somebody who just wants to get going. For the switches, CannonKeys did send me Gator and linears, but I also got these hand-looped Wisterias from Zap City, which are really nice. I only had one set of pre-hand looped ones before, black inks from KBD fans, and those were good, but the looping here feels more consistent and, well, better. The housing is super firm too, definitely no need for films, and at first I didn't really like the actuation force, but after a couple of days, these have become quite a favorite of mine. These are really nice switches. Lastly, for the keycaps, I finally found an excuse to get myself a PPD fans kit, in this case the Klein Blue. A lovely set, and I gotta say I really like what PPD fans is doing. These have a cool 3-dimensional look to them and in my opinion fit perfectly on the navy blue Brutal V2. They also came in the nicest stock packaging ever, which feels a lot more high-end and long-lasting than the cardboard equivalent of GMK or other softer plastic alternatives. Makes you want to store all your caps in these, but well, you know, it's gonna cost you. And now, the obligatory sound demo. What do you think? After using the board for a couple of weeks now, I've gotten really to enjoy it. I'm not overly happy with the spacebar though, but everything else feels really solid and firm. But of course, it's also very stiff, so I replaced the aluminum plate with the palm one and also removed the support beams in hopes to get a bit more flex out of this board. Although there isn't that much of a difference in feel, it is still noticeable. The sound signature on the other hand changes quite a bit. Overall, I much prefer the palm plate without the stems for sound and feel, and will be sticking to this variant for a while. There's something about how this board looks on my desk that I really enjoy. I know I say this a lot, but I can't help myself. The slimmer than usual borders, the shallower chin, and the understated sides make it a little wider looking than it actually is, which is something that I really like. The design doesn't just look good though. The slimness makes it really comfortable to type on. The rather conservative 6.5-degree angle supports this as well, something which I have begun to prefer. In the past, and if you watched any of my older videos, you'll know I used to always pick the highest incline, but I suppose I am getting older. The only, let's call it, crack in the foundation is its price. Yes, the construction is really nice and the machining is exquisite, but I'm not sure I would pay $350 for it. Direct in-stock competitors like the Mode Sonnet, which is a 75% board, start at a slightly lower price of $299, albeit with fewer extras. Even cheaper we find the Mega from Keepwork, also an in-stock option that has a lot of similarities, although I think it can't quite match the Brutal's immaculate machining. Now, if you say $350 is just a normal price for a premium custom, well, that's true, but I feel that in-stock boards should be priced lower. One of the primary aspects of this hobby is the fact that almost everything is limited, from keycaps to switches and of course boards. Everything seems to exist just for a blink of a second and then you missed it. Admittedly, that artificial scarcity makes buying a board quite thrilling. Being fast enough, lucky enough to get one feels like an achievement. For that I am willing to spend the extra dollars to be amongst the few, but when it is always available, I'd wager that it should be lower for those exact same reasons. The point of in-stock is to make it more accessible, so why not do so too with the price? There's also a shift in the market. Newcomers, or disruptors if you want to call them that, push the boundaries for what can be had for a sub $200 board, and they don't hold back on features either. On the contrary, they add them. This brings me to probably one of the most biased conclusions in a video ever. This is a good board. Everything it sets out to do it does really well. That includes the stiffness. It's not trying to flex its muscles, it's standing strong under pressure. It also sounds good if you like this type of sound, and of course it looks great if again you like these types of looks. I would have wished for more brutalist inspired colors though, like a softer white, maybe even a brown, dark green, or something that could resemble worn concrete, which would have really closed the circle on the overall design theme and maybe justified a higher price. With that being said, the design is its biggest selling point because you won't find something here that you can't get anywhere else. Maybe not exactly like this, but close enough that one might gamble with the thought of picking a cheaper alternative. But if the physical attraction is difficult to withstand, you can at least rest assured that what you'll be getting here is of substantial quality, even if it might be a bit brutal on your wallet. Hey, thank you all so much for watching this video, and thanks again to CannonKeys for letting me try out the Brutal V2. Really cool board. I hope you all had a great start into December. The Q&A video is just about done and ready to go, so thanks again to all the great questions. I hope the answers are just as satisfying. Anyway, thank you again and see you very soon. Bye.